Welcome back to Armchair Sports Talk. Today we're going to take a look at the games ahead in Week 5. Also, the controversial pay-for-play bill that's being discussed in California. We'll give our thoughts on that and also discuss a potential redshirt revolution. All that next on Armchair Sports Talk, college football. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Armchair Sports Talk. Bringing in our college football expert, Mr. Sean Hicks from Dallas. Sean, how you doing, bud?
Doing good, Brandon. How about yourself?
Doing great. Looking ahead to games of note for Week 5. So, not
We're
nearly
good
as
now, then.
yeah. We had to kind of dig pretty deep here to find too many games of note that we wanted to really dive into. But Sean, give us some quick hits here. What games do we need to be looking at?
Yeah, this is a pretty darn weak schedule. There are a couple of ranked v ranked games, but they're kind of like, are these teams really ranked version of these ranked v ranked games? And even on the college football hipster side, there isn't even that many exciting games. I think this is the worst week so far, actually. A lot of people said week 3 because there was no ranked v ranked, but those had a lot of games that were between not ranked teams that you thought would be pretty darn interesting. This is kind of blah.
Yeah, like I said, we had to reach a little bit deep. I think off the top. Mike Leach's group of Pirates up there, Washington State squad going to Utah, just came off their first loss. Both teams coming off losses. I think that could be interesting, probably maybe a high-scoring game, but Utah does have a pretty good defense. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, it might be the two best teams in the Pac-12, honestly. I think that's something that could be true. I know Washington probably thrown in there as well. I mean, certainly the losses put some luster off this game, right? But, both losses were pretty darn weird. I think this is, might be the best game of the week, just this or probably the Mississippi State Auburn. Probably from a talent and what this means for an overall division-wise. I expect Utah to win the game. What happened against USC was basically throw to the 5-star receiver. Well, Washington State has a very good passing game. They don't have a throw to the 5-star receiver type because they don't exist for the Pirate. And I don't see Washington State being able to stop them from running the football. And what happened with UCLA, it's hard to see them getting up. Also, Utah might be the toughest place to play in the nation that no one talks about because of how the altitude is and that crowd, which is crazy fierce through the whole time.
Yeah, 9 p.m. start time to this game. It's going to be a night game, and I agree. I think that Washington has a lot of talent defensively. I don't think Washington State's roster stacks up, although I think, again, they will put up some points, but I just think Utah's got too much for them. And that night game environment at home, it's going to be pretty tough for the Cougars.
This is my number one game on the entertainment factor, though. I would,
for sure.
If you want, entertaining, scoring football, fun personalities, always the risk of Pac-12's refs, being what they are. I would say this would be in my number one, watch this game.
Anytime Mike Leach is involved, it's pretty darn interesting. There's
that
no
is
doubt
a good
about
point. That is a very good point.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites, man, no doubt. Interesting game. I think Mississippi State coming off a big win, and then Auburn as well coming off a big win on the road, beating the Aggies down in College Station. Thoughts on that game? It's in Starkville.
Yeah, can Mississippi State get up early? I think is the real question in this game, right? I mean, the game they played against Kansas State was a real disappointment. Though, I think I mentioned in the recap of that is Tommy Stevens was clearly hurt in that game, right? He got pulled for freshman. It's a lot of it's going to depend on early on here. Starkville, it's going to be at night, I believe. It's going to be a tough place to play. They're going to be ringing the cowbell. If they can get up
still
early,
do that, the cowbell thing?
Yeah, they still do that.
Oh, it's so annoying.
If they can get up early, this could be something because I don't think Auburn's built to come back from them. I mean, I expect Auburn to win this game because I don't know how Mississippi State scores, really. That seems like a challenge to me. And Auburn, while they may not be able to really throw the football, they do some things really, really well. And I'm not sure there's anything Mississippi State can specifically put their hat on. But this is definitely one of those watch games, right? Or at least keep your phone up to tune for score updates.
Keep an eye on it, yeah.
Yeah, because if, especially in low-scoring affairs, a weird bounce of the football can change everything.
True freshman quarterback, no matter how poised or how much moxie he looks like he has, it's still a freshman, yeah.
It takes one pass into a linebacker's chest.
Well, I think the biggest thing, like you said, is they got to get if they can get a lead at home and let those bell cows, which are so annoying, God, I hate it. they might have a chance. I think we've discussed that quite a bit, that Auburn's one of those teams that they have to stay ahead and let that defense just go to town on the on the other offense, and that's going to be their strength. So part of their game plan all year. Big test coming up in the Big Ten. Road game for Ohio State going to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on the Cornhuskers. What do you think?
This feels like if there's a really dumb Ohio State loss for no reason by like 30 points that no one can possibly explain except for, Cancer Kid and Iowa for some reason. This kind of feels like it to me. So here's the thing. Obviously, Ohio State's way better to win the game. Like, that's not really in discussion. I don't think anybody's expecting Nebraska to win the game. What I'm going to be looking for specifically is Ohio State's defense has hired Greg Madison, an NFL guy, to basically coach it, right? And unsurprisingly, they're two competent coaches. They stopped the giant big play sleeve that they were last year. Ohio State was one of the best defenses in the nation on a down-to-down basis and gave up like 50 points to Maryland because they allowed all these giant plays. They don't do that anymore. What I do think they're sacrificing in this is they run a lot of zone. And they're really relying on putting some really, really good athletes, but in awkward places in their zone. And it hasn't mattered so far. I would not be surprised to see Nebraska seriously put up some points in Scott Frost's offense here, right? I think they have the type of offense that's going to expose the weakness of Greg Madison and the type of defense he runs. And as a Michigan fan with Greg Madison, being the defense coordinator for many years under Brady Hoke and then the D-line coach, I know very well what he likes to run. This is what he struggled with. I'm not surprised to see him crush weaker foes. I would like if you see Nebraska with like 30 points and that seems weird, I wouldn't be overly shocked.
Yeah.
How are they going to stop Ohio State? Ask me later. I have no idea, but
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Honestly, I'd be very surprised.
Fields turning the ball over. That's the only way.
I mean, Fields looks so good, and then just have so many game breakers on that team.
He does. If you get pressure on him, he will make some interesting decisions.
Better than he can run. I mean, that's the thing that he's.
That is the thing, and more than that, no one's been able to get pressure on him because Ohio State's line is good and Nebraska's pass rush is anemic. So
I think you're right. I think I like, was it Martinez, the quarterback's name in Nebraska, and I think Frost in year 2, but they just don't have enough playmakers yet. To really compete there, even though, again, the environment's going to be great for Nebraska, that home environment, but still got a ways to go there. I think Ohio State, I think they do give up some points, but I think they blow them out for sure.
Yeah, well, what I'd say is watch it, right? If Nebraska's in the first half, this could turn into something.
Maybe a crazy,
if they get blown out real quick, change channel, find something else, right? No big deal.
Maybe flip over to Penn State at Maryland.
That's a Friday game, sir.
Okay, so they can't flip over to that one. Maybe they recorded it. They can go back and watch it.
Yeah.
There you
go.
So
this is worth bringing up because Penn State looked so bad against Pitt. I mean, obviously, I know Pitt just won a big game against UCF, but the way they what happened to them, I think, is worth noting. They've struggled. They've been kind of all or nothing. They can't run the football unless it's a giant play. It's interesting. And then Maryland, of course, blows out Howard, who cares? Blows out Syracuse, right? Looks like, man, Mike Locksley's really an offensive genius. Then Temple happened, and that didn't go well. And by not going well, I'm kind of exaggerating how poorly that went. They put up like 300 yards on 17 drives, which is almost impossible to do. And Temple really somehow should have kind of blown them out.
This is a tough one to predict because, I mean, it's at Maryland. They're still Maryland's putting up 53 points a game. But then again,
they put up 15 against Temple, which tells you how many points they were putting up.
Exactly. So then on the flip side, Penn State putting up 47 points a game. So this has all the writings to be a shootout.
It's weird though. I don't think it is going to be a shootout though. Like, when we saw both teams go up against real defenses, right, they struggled a lot against them. And the biggest thing Penn State has is their pass rush is mean. Gross Matos is probably not a guy you maybe have heard of.
His name is Gross Matos?
Yes, which is pretty amazing name. But
sounds like the perfect D end or linebacker.
Right, doesn't it though? Is awesome. Like, I mean, like top 5 DN in the country level awesome. Like, he is legit as hell. And they have a bunch of pass rushers everywhere. And Maryland's weakness is they start guards basically at right tackles. So I feel if they have to drop back and throw the football at any points, they're going to die.
That's not going to be good.
What they could do, and what Penn State struggled with last year, is give up really big plays. And what Maryland is very good at is explosive plays with their very small but very fast and very hard to tackle running backs. And you could see a couple big plays going. I think Penn State wins this game because even if I don't necessarily trust Penn State's offense, I think the fact that they can get after the quarterback so bad is going to force turnovers.
Yeah, on a Friday night, I mean, a couple plays, ball bouncing here or there, they could hang in there.
Weird, right? Like, yeah. I'm with you I don't know, like, could be pretty weird.
Yeah. What do you think about Virginia going to Notre Dame, who we've agreed Notre Dame looked really darn good last Saturday.
They're going to die unless Notre Dame has the hangover of all hangovers is kind of where I feel like. Virginia feels like an 18 that they're like, hey, we're the second best team in the ACC, and everyone's like,
no,
yeah, that means nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing, right? They feel like a number is put next to their name because it has to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
It's at home for Notre Dame. Like, I don't see how they lose this game unless they just have a hangover of all hangovers. Virginia can kind of run the football now, which is good. They've got an athletic quarterback who still is not great at passing. They play very disciplined defense, but they don't cause a whole lot of havoc. I think they're very well coached, but I feel like this has to be Notre Dame shooting themselves in the foot multiple times.
Yeah, and like we've said, I mean, watching that game Saturday night, like a heck of a performance from Notre Dame.
Right.
I think they need to figure out how to run the ball a little bit better.
That's right.
Kind of tighten up some things on the offensive side, but defensively they played a heck of a game, and they really look like a top 5 contending team.
Yeah, a 5-star running back to go to Notre Dame. Like, why do you have these such trashy running backs? I don't know what's going on.
That's a good question, honestly. But they can certainly recruit freaking monster tight ends that look like avatars. That's all I know.
Yes, Georgia's gonna have nightmares of Kemp.
Gosh, not only that, but I mean, you look back. I mean, they've had Kyle Rudolph went there, Tyler Eifert went there. I mean, there's a few others that I'm not.
I know I can't think of them too, but they've had an ever-ending string of like tall white
just
tight ends.
Gigantic, like non-human looking people that just dominate.
Sure.
But USC came off a big win. They're going to Washington. They're going to Washington. What do you think their chances are against the Huskies?
Well, is Matt Fink going to be our favorite person because we think he's a Pokemon for the rest of the year?
I'm all on the Matt Fink bandwagon.
Yeah, like I'm with you now. Like, so if you didn't watch the Utah game, basically here's the entire offense of USC. Matt Fink drops back and throws a really high bomb to one of their awesome receivers and hopes something good happens.
That's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, and that's all it takes. You would think Washington could stop that, but honestly, most of the plays against Utah didn't look like bad defense as much as it looked like they have these giant robots outside, and Matt Fink threw really good deep balls because he's a Pokemon. And Washington should win this game. Like, I mean, there's not a whole lot of question. They put up a giant egg to lose to, who was it, BYU in the second week of the season?
Yes.
I mean, that was on the road, though. Jacob Eason has, besides the BYU game, has looked good at Washington. Their defense is very good. Those jump balls seem so random. There's no way they can all work again this time. Like that.
Yeah, no way.
They couldn't stop Utah at all. Like they could not even remotely stop Utah. Utah shot themselves in the foot. Is how.
Yeah, but I like the strategy though. Like we've talked about in the past. Like if you have those receivers, don't overthink it. Like just let him just throw the ball up there. I mean, worst thing could happen. Maybe he throws a pick here or there, but you also have a good chance that you can get a pass interference call. You can move the chains that way. Or looks like in this past week, you might just come down with it and win you a game. So those receivers, they got are just that good.
Those plays are high variance and random. So, right, yeah. I mean, you get a couple enough, someone misses a tackle, and all of a sudden it's an 80-yard touchdown.
Well, not only that, but what it does is it's going to open up the short passing game, the screen game, the running game.
You would think that would happen, right? You would think. But I watched that Utah game, and that is not what happened. Every time they tried to run the football, it was disaster. Every time they tried to throw before 30 yards downfield is a disaster.
But I guarantee you that they're going to have a safety over the top. Washington will. They're going to be looking for those deep bombs. There's no doubt.
That too, and they're going to have a chance to prepare for it as well, right?
Yeah.
Like that, Slovis was hurt like on the second play of the game.
So hopefully our dude Matt Fink can, hit some underneath passes, kind of get some things going, and he doesn't have to rely on just the 9 routes.
But we're thinking Washington here probably, and it's not going to be that close.
No, I'm with you. I'm a huge Jacob Eason guy. Kind of bummed me out when they got upset that week 2 or 3, whatever it was. But I still think he's having a great year. Probably be one of the top quarterbacks picked in next year's draft.
Well, probably not next year, given how many good quarterbacks are coming out. But
we'll have to. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know though. He's a pretty good player, man. He's got an arm.
Yeah, man. But this year's quarterback draft is insane. With Tua from what's his name, from Herbert from Oregon. This is I guess Hurts all of a sudden is going to be in that conversation too.
Yeah. You got to throw Hurts in there, but the year after isn't that better?
Right.
Either.
Exactly.
Yeah. Definitely good quarterback play all around the country for sure. But I certainly think Washington will pull through on that game. So, but like we said, kind of a mediocre slate, but we said that in week 3, and it turned out to be one of the most interesting weeks storyline wise so far in the 2019 season. So moving on, we've got a couple other interesting topics to discuss, and both of which Sean and I have pretty strong opinions on. The first, however, that we're going to touch on, the pay-for-play, quote-unquote, bill that's been passed and considered by now the NCAA to put into effect. Basically, for those that aren't familiar with kind of what's going on, Sean, can you just explain to us like what this bill entails and how the system would work?
Yeah, well, it's certainly not passed by the NCAA, given their very, very strict response to this. But this is essentially by the state of California, and it's been categorized as the pay-to-play, but that's not what this is at all. This is a very intelligent written bill that is designed to really attack the NCAA where it hurts. And what it is it's designed, and it's essentially where it is. This bill is passed past Congress, the House version and the Senate version of the state Senate of California. And it's sent to the governor's office, who has vocally supported the bill and is expected to sign. And it's required to give name and image rights to college athletes. So the reason why this is such an important thing is, one, it's non-discriminatory, right? Any college athlete is allowed to be able to sell, and required to by law, once this is signed and passed, to be able to sell their name, image, their likeness, be able to sell their jerseys, do radio spots, TV, and be able to get a cut of it to various companies that want to be able to do it. The reason this is not pay for play is the university is taking zero part in actually paying the player. This is them allowing to advertise themselves. So Jake Fromm of Georgia goes to car dealership and that wants to say, hey, I want Jake Fromm to say the ending, to say go buy a car here. They can be able to go do that. Be able to afford that. They pay Jake Fromm money to be able to do that. By law, that is something that they're legal to be able to do. This is able to, every single student athlete that is enrolled in any specific college is going to be allowed to be able to do this. And under law, the NCAA will not be able to stop them or provide punitive damages for that to be able to happen. Of course, the NCAA is just basically a collection of colleges. They really have no legal right to do anything of it, where the state law is the law. You have to follow it. So colleges will not be able to stop them. The NCAA has come out very, very against this bill. First, Mark Emmert has talked about they're going to pull everything from the state of California. They're not going to allow any California students in the NCAA, which all the Twitter lawyers have kind of laughed at him and said, great, open yourself up to the biggest slam dunk antitrust lawsuit you have, because what you're basically saying is we're not going to allow you in because you're not following the rules. And since there aren't other competitions, you are violating the Sherman Antitrust Act, and you will be absolutely 100% crushed and destroyed by law. The second area they've tried to talk about this is that it's not constitutional. They're going to fight in constitutional court because in their mind, because athletes are allowed to cross states, that will be under interstate commerce, and that will give them an unfair advantage under interstate commerce law and therefore not be constitutional. which pretty much any Twitter lawyer who has looked at it has said that doesn't work that way. It's completely constitutional because they allow every single person to be able to take part of it. It is other areas, not themselves, preventing it. So
right. So what in this just general scenario? Let's just say I'm Trevor Lawrence, and basically I have the ability and likeness to be able to take game worn jerseys, get with whoever makes Clemson's uniforms, autograph those, put them on whatever website, then they get sold and I get to keep the cut of the profits or all the profits.
Essentially, maybe tougher with Nike because they're under contracts with schools, so maybe get more dicey from that area.
But I guess that would be my main question is like how some of those little things like autograph signings or
so autograph signings that 100% be able to do, right? So some they want to be able to sign. I pay you $15, you sign this football, right?
Right, and then sponsorships. That's pretty straightforward for a car dealership.
Straightforward.
Like come see Tua at the mom and pop Chevy.
Yep. The only reason why the Nike one's a little bit is because they have contracts with schools. So there could be some questions of funneling through schools is the only way that would be questioned. But keeping it simple and basic from a, any basic store around that wants them to do it. It could be any specific thing, boys and girls club. If they want to pay them a few bucks to be able to do that, to come show up, they can do that under this. I am selling the ability for you to use my face and my name to sell your product.
So what about taking game used attire and selling it on Amazon?
Depends
I'm
on.
I'm going to sell my game used socks that I wore in the national championship game.
The only reason I'd say that depends on if that's considered school property or their property. If that's considered their property, then they should be able to sell it. No problem.
Yeah. Well, I think the school would probably come back and argue that they're on scholarship probably, and they provide them all that equipment.
Right, which I think is come to points of how do you regulate it, and which is why this bill is really smart. Is it mostly attacks things that are not going to be school affiliated in this, right? And which is what the NCAA will ideally should do is talk about what constitutes as go through the school or not, but they want to cut everything off, which is
and I just think this is well past the time for college athletes. Look at the money that these guys are bringing in, and these universities, these brands, these networks. It's absurd that these guys don't get any cut of that.
Yep.
Going back and hearing, and this is something that I've come honestly full circle on. I've kind of flipped to the other side about it, but yeah, Tim Tebow came out in strong opposition of this. Listen to it. Kind of rang a chord a little bit with me at first, because I love school pride. I want that team, like everyone doing things for the team, and I really like that chord. But the more I thought about it, and then I looked at some of the stats in terms of the revenue, and then looking at these TV deals, and they don't get anything from that. Are you kidding me? Don't buy it. What were your thoughts on what Tebow had to say?
My thoughts are not appropriate for this program, given the amount of language that I want to call him. So I will try to keep it so we don't get an explicit tag anywhere and say that I've never heard such a thing of privilege in my entire life. Tim Tebow comes from a very well-off family in Florida that he was able to be a very successful quarterback, go to the NFL, and then use his brand to become a terrible commentator from it. The system worked for him. A majority of athletes are very poor black athletes that put their physical body on the line, get punished for it for no return. And it's absolutely ridiculous that he's not willing to stand up for a majority of what was his teammates when he was at Florida and then beyond. Look at Denard Robinson of Michigan, right? Denard Robinson was on the freaking cover of NCAA football the last year that they created it. Denard Robinson was more valuable at the quarterback at Michigan than he ever was as a running back at the Jacksonville Jaguars. If he was able to sell his name and rights when he was at Michigan, he would have been able to be set for life. He is less valuable now that he is past that prime and never got to take advantage of the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of jerseys, including one that I have that has the 16 on the back that says Robinson, right? And he got paid $0 for that. Denard Robinson is from one of the single worst places in Florida. And this is in Florida, it's bad. Florida thinks this is bad, right? That's how bad this place is.
So this rule doesn't affect like Denard Robinson now going back to Ann Arbor and making money.
Sure, not now, but his value was in 2011 is way more.
So basically the argument is, well, now he's gone to the NFL. We've seen kind of, I guess his legacy and what it was, and he, that story kind of ended. That's lost its allure, so to speak.
How much money did Michigan make off him, do you think? How many?
I mean, I was just thinking, just alone from that cover, from him being on the cover of that video game. I mean, he should have gotten tens. I mean,
he did get paid for the cover because he was
already pro.
Yeah, already pro. But think of how
that just goes to show you the money though that's out there with a brand like Michigan. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And think about this: the reason why don't we have college football games anymore? It's not EA. EA is willing to pay people for it. They want to make the game. The NCAA refuses to let them make the game.
Yeah, right? And then there's an interesting, conclusion from the Ed O'Bannon case, which ultimately was the root of that whole college football video game. EA Sports deciding to quit making the college athletic games.
Well, again, the NCAA deciding it. The EA was fine with paying it. The NCAA was the one that prevented them.
Right, but recently awarded, I think it was like $30 million to that group for their, for use and not being compensated for their likeness, which I think in this day and age with technology the way it is and how prevalent video games are and how great that game was. I mean, that was a great series year after year after year.
How excited would you be to be able to buy a game that had Jake Fromm and Swift and Wilson and the rest of the Georgia team where they can name them and talk about them? You could put interviews on them. They could mocap the main ones, right? And they're getting paid for. Do you think EA would not pay them to do that?
No, EA would make so much money. Yeah, and then you could even – yeah, this can go down a road that I can foresee it being even a bigger issue where you start to talk about high school recruits and how much eyeballs they get now and opinions they get now. And then how does that factor in? Because you can go in and these kids are getting recruited as, 15, 16-year-olds in some cases. And so those video games were starting to include those things like, recruiting. You get to see all the 5 stars in these different states. So in this video game, if you're going to have the names of the college players, well, why not have the names of the high school kids that are getting recruited by them? I mean, I don't know how all that would work.
It'd be tougher because
interesting rabbit hole to kind of go down to think of. But my point is like the vast majority of potential and revenue that could be created. Yeah, I absolutely agree that EA, I mean, they're looking at that like it's a gold mine.
And they're not allowed to do it because the NCAA wants to keep their tax exempt status and wants to be able to make this shadow that, it's student athletes and they only play for school. And that's the reason that they care about everything. And it's a ridiculous system overall. Yeah. And the players are completely exploited by the system. The money should 100% go to the players' hands. It's not even a question. And it's really disgusting that we as a society accept that, right? Especially here in America, where we're supposed to be all about capitalism and free market. But we're like, except for you guys.
I think realistically, though, this is a very smart way to go about it. I mean, you mentioned how well that the bill was drafted and written and well thought through. This is a very savvy way to go about it because they had to have thought about this before, seeing how stubborn the NCAA was. We're not going to be able to go through and negotiate a salary for them or anything like that. Like, what's a way that we can find – right. What's a way we can find that's going to make progress towards what we're trying to accomplish? And so far, I mean, I'm very impressed with what they came up with, and I think it's a great start to what needs to be done.
Well, it's important to talk about what this has effect on the NCAA, right? There's a reason they've come out against this so strong, and that this is the game changer, right? It's ever since the TV contracts became what they are, right? And the sport became worth what it was, which blows everything else out of the water, essentially, right? This has been pushed back. I think this is the domino that sets everything off, because realistically, the NCAA can't kick California schools out. It's not an option that they have for this, right? And if they try anything real like that, they're going to get just destroyed by lawsuits from it. But it's not just that. It's Michigan has a law that looks just like this now. South Carolina has a law that looks just like this now. There's another one that has a law that looks just like this now. And going back to how well the law was written, I don't believe it goes in effect until January 2023, I believe is when the date is. They're giving the NCAA 4 years to figure out a solution to this. They're not strong-arming them. They're trying to say, this is a problem, you need to come up with one. But I think this is what ends everything that you see here, because this will get passed, and when it does, it's going to have real tangible impacts. They're not going to be able to push this down the line forever. And once it exists, they have to open it up. Because you think the SEC is going to allow the Pac-12, California, to get such a recruiting advantage?
No.
Do you think they're going to allow it? No. There's no way Greg Sankey's going to allow that.
No.
He will, with how hard he fought for like Harbaugh's satellite camps because he was afraid of a recruiting advantage. There's no way. This is the bombshell, in my opinion, that changes everything.
Yeah, and then they really needed that kind of cornerstone piece of legislation to be pushed through, just like we compared it to the betting example and legalizing the betting across the country, and how that's kind of trickled down and building up that momentum through different legislations and different states across the country now. And pretty soon it's going to be the norm. So I think this is just the first step to getting there. And it's good to see. Good to see some progress there, but I would still be curious to see like some of those intricacies about, how exactly certain things will be regulated and enforced. I think that's where it could be sticky, but that's why you got lawyers on both sides to figure it out.
Well, in theory too, this is why they're giving the NCAA 4 years to figure this out, right?
Yeah,
exactly. That's the point. That's the point of that, right? Like, yeah. I think that secretly this was one of the smartest things they did, is give such a long rollout for this. I mean, me as the guy who wants to get it done right away, I hate it, but from like a legal standpoint and how to get this done, they don't look like they're villains pushing it on them. They look like they're guys trying to solve a problem and giving you plenty of room to do it. And this is going to get won in the public media at the end of the day, right? Like that's where this battle is going to get won.
And I've got to say, for how long the NCAA, I mean, they've definitely gotten a certain reputation, but dude, how long have they been able to keep up just this standing of being the NCAA, being in power, being able to not have athletes be paid and compensated at all?
A nonprofit?
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Like, they have maybe like most incredible PR firm of all time. I mean, how can they not have anybody come up with some kind of strategy to bring them down and expose them for the fraud a lot of times that they are?
Couple of reasons. One is the NCAA is designed to be the villain of the colleges, because in the end of the day, the NCAA is created and run by the heads of colleges, and they don't want the money to go to the players because they want it to go to themselves and the schools.
Same way Roger Goodell's working for the owners of the NFL. They want all the money up top.
Exactly. But they want to put a villain, and they are going to let NCAA be the villain. But really what changes is TV contracts. Yeah. Remember, up until the 2000s, TV contracts were not nearly what they were. So everybody was making money, but it wasn't nearly to the extent that you see nowadays. Specifically when the Big Ten Network was created and the TV contracts blossomed from a lot of money to a godly amount of money, where schools have to start investing in things like these multi-million-dollar facilities for their softball programs and things, where they have to put it in crazy places, right? That are in non-revenue areas because they have to try to keep their non-profit status. That's what's changed and made it in the public eye more than anything else. Is now everyone can go up and go, what is this? This is ridiculous. Yeah. And I think that's why now we've been at a tipping point for a while. And I feel like we've been waiting. We were hoping the O'Bannon case was going to be one to do it. This feels like the domino, because it's a legal legislation that's going to have to get followed. That's going to change everything.
That also makes sense, and it gives time to, deliberate on the issue. Like, let's go back and forth. Let's figure out what we need to do and put a plan in place that makes sense. So, yeah.
And it's like important. This is a timing thing, too. Remember, the NCAA is involved in the incredibly embarrassing FBI scandal with college basketball, too. Mm-hmm. So this is why this is going to get so much publicity. is when you see, prominent players in an FBI wiretap getting talked about playing this amount of money. You can't hide from it anymore.
Exactly.
And that's why I think all this combined together is what's going to change everything. And like I think I said this when we were doing the review, is a Michigan fan who we begrudgingly are idiotic and do it. This is the best thing that can happen. I think to the sport too, because I think bringing some of this stuff out into the light where you don't have to do as much underhanded payments is good from a cultural standpoint, because a lot of times athletic departments, when they're trying to hide things like, we pay players, which again, don't care that you pay players. I think you should, right? You tend to create negative cultures, which is how you see very negative things happen because everybody rallies around the athletic program. And I don't think you have to look too far for what happens, say, at a Florida State with Jameis Winston clearly getting help by the police because you have a culture of silence happening. I don't think if you have things where you don't have a culture of silence happening because you're trying to do something you should be allowed to do, that I think it'll bring some of these things that are really on the seedy underbelly that we don't like to talk about much to light, and you'll get less problems with that.
I hope you're right there, my friend. We're going to move on to segment 3 for tonight, and it's really just hot off the press. Yesterday, news came about that D'Eriq King and another top wide receiver at University of Houston were both going to forego the rest of this season and utilize their red shirt to save eligibility, their last year of eligibility, for next season. They both claimed that it was to improve their readiness for their future. They both included from statements that it was with the intention to, after discussing it with Dana Holgorsen, the Houston head coach, as well as their families, to basically give it a fresh start. Next year, the team's going to be better, second year under Holgorsen. And, basically said that it was going to be intended to stay at Houston.
Right.
Now, where it gets interesting is these guys are both starters for this Houston team. Now, granted, they started off 1-3, so not off to a great start in the AAC. But we haven't seen this before. We did see last year Kelly Bryant, who was kind of injured / benched for Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence is the most talented QB in the college football right now, arguably. So no huge surprise there. So Bryant was benched / injured, so he lost his job. So he took his red shirt after that 4th game, therefore keeping him eligible to play this season. Use that red shirt for last year. There was one other example, Jalen McCleskey transferred to Oklahoma State, same kind of scenario. So this is kind of breaking ground where guys that are starting players, and D'Eriq King's a record-breaking player. I mean, he puts up crazy stats.
I think he's the only player in 10 straight games to have a passing
and rushing
and a receiving, or at a rushing touchdown, I think.
Yep, you're right. So these two guys are beasts, and basically they're both saying, okay, well we started 1-3, so we're not going to play the rest of the season. Again, they alluded to the fact that they're going to stay at Houston after an offseason program. They're going to stay involved.
Right.
But then D'Eriq King's father, Eric King, comes in and says, well, actually, this is the plan, but we're going to explore all options and, look at the best opportunity for my son. So opening up the door of, he might not stay at Houston. He might just be saying, okay, well, Jalen Hurts is out at Oklahoma, for example, so I'm going to hop up there and follow the path to success.
That has been the running joke. That has been the running joke.
I mean, you couldn't argue with the strategy. I mean, I would go, if I were him, play for Lincoln Riley. But what do you think of the whole thing in general? Is it good or bad for the game? And what do you think of these two guys, deciding to just call it quits for the year when they're starting and healthy?
So there's a part of this that I think we as fans look at, right? And it feels yucky might be the word to use, right? Because we look at how much we're obsessed with our own team, right? That we've put in, you Georgia, right? Me Michigan, how we've put our heart and soul from $1 time investment, emotional standpoint into this, and go, well, how could you ever do that? Betray your team, betray your teammates like that. But the truth is, I'm for this, because the reality is college football is a professional sport of all things and purposes. What these guys are trying to do is they're trying to use their unique skill sets to get paid. And for them, it might make sense for him to transfer up to be the starting quarterback for Lincoln Riley, because that seems to be working pretty well from a getting paid standpoint, right?
Well, right. So against that, and the argument is I stay here at Houston,
or that,
I finish out my season. What's my status, my draft status?
I might go play receiver.
Exactly. That's right? What would happen.
Maybe we'll take you in the 6th round, and you'll be an undrafted free agent, and you'll get a shot at the league.
You're going to be another Denard Robinson.
Exactly. Or maybe you get a shot at Lincoln Riley, and you do become a Lincoln Riley quarterback, and all of a sudden you're putting up numbers where maybe people are still hesitant at you, but all of a sudden you're a 3rd, 4th round, which you have a guaranteed contract coming to you, right?
Exactly.
That's the thing. These guys, what they have to go through on a daily basis to go through the grind to be a sports star, right? This is their livelihood to an extent. An NFL contract, just one NFL contract, can change a life by the amount that they get paid for, right? And then everything that comes with it. Like I said, I get that they might have an icky feeling to begin with, but the truth is you have to put yourselves in their shoes. This is a business decision that they're making. And really, if we're being honest, most of recruiting is a business decision of how you can get into the league, get paid to do it. I don't bemoan any kid for doing that. And if you think that's what's best for you, for your team, for your career going afterwards, just like Nick Bosa did when he could maybe come back at the end of the Ohio State season. Go get paid, man. That's what this is all about at the end of the day.
Right.
I get it. You're a professional. If I left a job I was working at, right, because I felt another company was going to offer me, and maybe it was just 3 months because I felt like my dream offer came, everyone would go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I get that.
Right. And not only that, but the coaches do that themselves. I mean, look at Manny Diaz this last offseason. I mean, there's unlimited number of examples where it was my dream job. So I took this job for 3 months and then moved on to the big one. So why were players, looked at as negatively when they try to do the same thing?
Great point, Brandon. Absolutely. 100%.
So, I think with this and the transfer portal, those are two things that are really helping the players. I don't know. We've talked about the transfer portal in the past, but I mean, it's just really putting the power back in the players' hands. I mean, how much more exciting has it made Oklahoma, the last few years, getting that quarterback in, seeing if they can make it work. And I mean, you see countless examples, of players moving, the Jake Fromm, that reaction from
Easton gets a shot at Washington.
That chain reaction that he set off, all those great players going to different spots. I mean, it
makes
great.
Football better overall at the end of the day. And I'll also add this is still a pretty rare thing. It's not like we're having hundreds of players doing this, right? We're having a couple unique players in unique situations that it makes sense for them to be able to do. This rule specifically is still a great rule because it allows guys to get their feet wet and still be able to redshirt and keep their year of eligibility. So let's also separate that as well. This rule overall is great, and even these very unique instances we're talking about, I'm still supported because it's players finding a way that's doing best for them. I get it.
And in the past too, I mean, you go back, there's even a gray shirt, you know what I mean? Like for players that they didn't have a scholarship for, so they were like, oh, well, we'll give you a gray shirt. So that means we can give you a red shirt next year. So, I mean, it's like everything that the university has all the leverage in this situation.
Yep.
So this is a situation where these guys are saying, no, actually, I'm going to use it for my own personal gain. And I don't care. I could run the table here at Houston and we could go 9-3 and play in the Bojangles Bowl. But I'm going to redshirt and I'm going to take a mulligan and I'm going to go play for Lincoln Riley next year. How about that?
No,
you know what I mean? Like that's a career decision where you could make $30 million more or plus just based on that power alone. That's a power that they haven't had in the years past, to your point.
It's a life-changing decision for them. And like I said, what I want us as spectators to start remembering is these are real people, right? And this is their bodies they put on the line, and this is their profession, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's remember that even if it feels icky to us as fans that put all of this into it, let's remember these are real people from it. And that's all I ask for them. And I think this is good overall. I think your point about the coaches specifically is fantastic.
Yeah. So you got the coaches that are able to benefit from the popularity of the sport, but now let's get the players in on that a little bit more. And and if they need to change environments to get a better, platform to show off their skills, then, albeit. I think it's great though. A lot of good things going on that we've, touched on tonight, but I think the game of college football from a popularity standpoint, through the roof, A lot of great players, great coaches, and a lot of good football right now. I think all the way around, we've seen some sloppiness here or there, some really bad refereeing. But all in all, I mean, so far this season, I mean, yeah, I've been pretty impressed with the gameplay altogether. Agreed. Any other thoughts before we wrap up, Sean? We touched on some deep topics there, but overall, anything else before we call it a night?
No, I think we can call it a night. I think we covered it all.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate everyone tuning in and checking us out tonight. We ask everybody to please leave us a review and subscribe to our channel. That's one thing we're really working on, guys, is building our subscriber base. We appreciate you guys' views. We've got over actually 2,500 views to our channel altogether, so we certainly appreciate that. But we're really looking to bring you guys content on a long-term basis, and to do that, we got to build our subscriber base. So if you could, share it with your friends on all the social media platforms. We are on Facebook at Armchair Sports Talk, and then on Twitter at ACS Sport Talk. Please do everything you can to help us out and boost us up there. And for Sean Hicks, this is Brandon Harris. We'll see y'all next time on Armchair Sports Talk.
See you guys.